The Committee on Zoning and Planning is reconvening at 11:49 a.m. Moving to agenda item number 5, informational briefing, update on the city's Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund program. Joining us in the council chamber will be first Catherine Tachner, Deputy Director of Housing and Land Management, and Olu Campbell, President Chief Executive Officer for the Hawaii Land Trust. For your information, their presentations are available online as Departmental Communication 648-2025 and Miscellaneous Communication 435-2025, respectively. And Deputy Director, if you don't mind, I'd also like for you to introduce your team, because the whole idea of holding this hearing is both for City Council members to know more about this undervalued and important program, but also for us to help in the dissemination of the program to our constituents so that they could apply for this important program. Thank you.
All right. Aloha, Zoning Chair Kia Aina and other members of the Honolulu City Council's Committee on Zoning and Planning. My name is Kat Tashner, and I'm the Deputy Director for the Department of Housing and Land Management, and I'm pleased to be here today to talk about one of the best parts of my job. There's a presentation roadmap of what we'd like to cover today, and I believe that's in the materials that was handed out. But thank you, Councilmember Kia Aina. I would also like to introduce our team. I'm joined here today by Tam and Bree, our Clean Water and Natural Lands Program Managers. They are incredibly dedicated to the work, and we're so pleased to have them today. Tam has a super strong legal and transactional background, so she helps us with the structuring and completing the transactions, and Bree has a master's in natural resource and environmental management, and so she assists with the stewardship and monitoring of the previously acquired parcels. These two women are the beating heart of the Clean Water and Natural Lands program, and I'm really happy you got a chance to meet them. So I will begin with a brief overview of the Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund, its history. It was created by the voters through a charter amendment in 2006, and the program was officially started in 2007. The first land acquisition made using the Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund was in 2010. And then in 2016, the Honolulu voters approved an amendment to establish an advisory commission. In 2022, the voters further amended the Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund, this time to create a stewardship fund for lands that were previously acquired using Clean Water and Natural Lands monies. These monies could go towards the operation and land management of those lands. In 2023, the Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund and the Advisory Commission were administratively transferred over to DLM, and earlier this year, we stood up the Conservation Office so that the Clean Water and Natural Lands program will have a permanent home within the city. The Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund can be used for the purposes identified in Section 9-204 of the City Charter. We've put it up on the slide there, but it's really broad. It includes ag, it includes open space, it includes cultural and historical sites, watershed land, coastal areas. So it really, really is a broad fund. And the charter also establishes a process for which applications and proposals for the use of the fund are received. The process begins with the landowner or the applicant submitting an application to the Department of Land Management, actually the Department of Housing and Land Management. We go through it with them, we do an initial review, we qualify it, and thereafter it goes to the Advisory Commission for evaluation. The Advisory Commission will make a recommendation to the Honolulu City Council for funding, and after funding approval, then it moves into negotiation and closing. This is where we do a lot of our due diligence. We work with the landowner, we work with the applicant to make sure how do we preserve these conservation values in perpetuity. This negotiation and closing phase can be extremely lengthy. In some cases, you'll see on a later slide, I think there was 10 years. These are forever transactions, and we want to make sure that we're structuring them appropriately, and so this period can take some time. And eventually, once we close, then we move on to the next chapter of the property, which is the perpetual stewardship of the land. The charter establishes a 7-member volunteer advisory commission with 3 appointed by mayor, 3 appointed by the Honolulu City Council, and 1 appointed by the majority vote of the 6 appointed members. And the commission members come from a variety of conservation, science, education, policy, and cultural backgrounds. And I've listed the 7 current members on the slide. So that's the program. That's how we're established by charter. Now I'd like to move into the portfolio of assets. And this map indicates in green, the parcels that have been acquired using Clean Water and Natural Lands funds. These are the ones that are now in perpetual stewardship. The items in blue are the ones that we are currently in due diligence for, negotiation, closing, documentation. And we'd like to do a particular spotlight on our agricultural lands. Many of our clean water funded acquisitions do support active agriculture, including the ones at Wahiawa Lands, Sunset Ranch, Turtle Bay Mauka, Hakipu'u, Mauna Wila, and Haweaheau. I'm now going to turn it over to Director-Designate Kevin Auger to talk about the existing portfolio, the funding sources, and the budget.
Aloha, Committee Chair Kia Aina, and honorable council members and committee members. I'm Kevin Auger. I'm the Director Designate of the Department of Housing and Land Management. And just a few comments. First, on behalf of the department, I just wanted to reiterate how grateful we are for this opportunity to present this informational briefing today. I want to thank you, Committee Chair Kia Aina, for your leadership and also for your interest in the committee's interest in collaborating with the department on this really important resource for the city. You know, I had the pleasure of working and observing the team as they prepared this informational briefing over the last couple of days, and I have to tell you that the excitement from the team, I can just only attest to their eagerness to provide this information and share out all the good work that our community partners, that the Clean Water and Natural Lands Commission and the department is doing with respect to the fund. The Department of Land Management, as you know, became the Department of Housing and Land Management on May 1st this year. As a department, we're supremely focused on facilitating and accelerating the delivery of affordable housing production on Oahu, particularly in terms of increasing density in transit neighborhoods, transit-oriented neighborhoods along the rail line. However, our work with the Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund is equally important. As a department, it provides us with an opportunity to preserve and protect our INA and some of the most important and precious and irreplaceable lands on our island. This creates a welcome balance in our work as it allows us to keep the country country, so to speak, and to keep the city city. This is a passion program for us, all of us. And so again, I want to just thank you for the opportunity to share these stories today. On the financial side, the department assumed jurisdictional responsibility for the Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund just 2 years ago on July 1st, 2023. When we look at the history of the fund, during its first 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, the fund had completed approximately 12 transactions that totaled around $35 million of investment, and it protected approximately 1,340 acres of really important lands. This is an average of a little over 1 transaction a year and an average transaction size of approximately 112 acres and $3 million respectively. When the department resumed responsibility of the fund in July 2023, you can go to the next slide, I get a click. There it is. There were 5 transactions outstanding in the pipeline, and these pending transactions were originated between 2019 and 2022. The department is now completing these pending transactions, which total approximately $14 million, and they'll protect approximately 196 acres of land. So on an average transaction size, it's again 1 transaction a year with an average transaction size of 40 acres and $2.8 million respectively. Over the last 2 years since assuming responsibility for the fund, DHLM has originated 2 transactions totaling 172 acres and $16.7 million. Again, this represents an average of 1 transaction a year with an average transaction size in this instance of 80 acres and $8.4 million. I'd like to just point out a couple of things. One is these transactions take a significant amount of time to complete for a number of reasons. A, just standard due diligence matters, the counterparties that we're working with that we don't control, being at the mercy of the land court, for instance, but also these transactions are highly complex. Conservation easements to preserve land run into perpetuity. So when we're structuring transactions that will last forever, we want to make sure we get it right. That's really important to us, and Deputy Director Tashner has been leading an effort over the last year and a half or so, completing a top-down review of all of the city's conservation easement documents to make sure that we've got appropriate amendments and making appropriate adjustments to those important documents. If we look at the current balance of the fund, there's approximately, can I have that page? Pardon me. If we look at the current balance of the fund, there's approximately $35 million in existing portfolio balance. The fund receives 0.5% of real property tax annually. That totals between $8 and $9 million. The current balance of the fund, as I indicated, when the department assumed jurisdictional authority for the fund, there was a CIP balance of fiscal year 25 of $25 million and a fiscal year 26 balance of $29 million. So obviously quite a number of years of funding had accumulated in the fund. We have pending projects totaling $14 million, as we just mentioned. $14 million of that's encumbered. We have pending projects of $17 million that are unencumbered. So the total availability of the fund after pending projects is approximately $37 million. So we have a good war chest there to work with to seek opportunities as we move forward. You want to take it there? Deputy Tashner will resume.
Can I have this, please? Oh, and all the way, we went back in time. Okay, so now that we're done with the portfolio, I'd like to move on to the Clean Water and Natural Lands Program. So when the Blangiardi administration took over, there was no Clean Water and Natural Lands Program. There were 0 employees, and since then, we're really proud to have hired some really talented staff. Bree and Tam are here with us today. And through the recent reorg, we created the Conservation Office so that the Clean Water Program will forever be a part of the city. As part of establishing the program, we hired a consultant to assist with the creation of a logo and branding. And it's up on the slide now, but it's a graphic depiction of Naupaka Kuahivi, the mountain, and the Naupaka Kahakai, the beach flowers, which are known for their half-flower appearance and are depicted together to symbolize the Clean Water and Natural Land Program's mission of conservation of both land and water within the city. Prior to the Blangiardi administration, clean water was only used as an acquisition fund. However, that is only half of the conservation equation. Once the land is acquired, there is a perpetual responsibility to steward the land to ensure that the conservation values endure. When I started in 2021, all we got was a filing cabinet of all the old acquisition files, and as we went through them, we quickly realized, although we have an annual monitoring obligation, no one had been doing it. So we hired our first ever program manager, and we started going to each of the sites, all 12, that year, and it's a practice that we continue today, developing relationships with the landowners and ensuring that the conservation values are met. Recognizing that stewardship is an important and critical component to the life cycle of conservation transactions, we drafted language to amend the charter to expand the permitted use of the Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund. The amendment was approved by the voters, and now we have dedicated stewardship funding for all clean water sites. Under the Clean Water Program, we have initiated new stewardship projects, including installing symbolic fencing and signage and training golf course staff at the Kahuku Golf Course about the uaukani, which are shorebirds that nest in the ground. These types of projects will ensure that the city responsibly stewards the lands that we own and which were purchased with the Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund. We are always grateful for an opportunity to share more about this program, and so we're very happy to be here today with this informational briefing to share about the program, the fund, and all of the really, really good work that is happening. We've been making similar presentations. We recently presented with the State Legacy Lands Commission and the counties of Maui, Hawaii, and Kauai at the Hawaii Con. The presentation was called Show Me the Money. And we also presented to the Economic Revitalization Commission to do a focus on potential ag use of the Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund. Our staff regularly attend work days with community partners to build relationships and to build the program. The program would be nothing without its partners, and we are very pleased to work with, in collaboration with other city departments. In the interest of time, I won't read out all of the items on the slide, but there is a lot of really good collaborative work happening. We're also working with other federal, state, and counties to ensure that our program is strong and that we're adopting best practices. And we work most closely with our conservation site partners. In most cases, the city owns a conservation easement, so we don't own the land. We work with the landowner to ensure that the conservation values are met. We are joined here today by Olu Campbell and the Hawaii Land Trust. He'll speak after me. I also I think I saw Elizabeth Riley and Kendrick on the phone from Livable Mauna Hui. We work very closely with our conservation partners, and so I've listed them on these slides and the sites that we partner with them on. Finally, we're joining a lot of community partnerships to just continue to grow the program and to grow our role in this conservation ecosystem. And finally, I will close with a little bit of an insight into what's happening next. When we took over the program, there was a pre-application and a 9-page application, which required that many of the studies, appraisals, surveys, title reports, environmental reports, they had to be submitted up front. These studies can be super expensive, and it's a lot of cost, and you might not even get an approved project. So as we began developing relationships with our project partners, we asked them for feedback, and across the board, they all recommended that we needed to streamline the application and lower the barrier to entry. So we overhauled the application process, which you can now begin by submitting a simple inquiry form, and the QR code is on the screen. At that point, our Clean Water team will meet with the applicant, discuss their proposal, and these upfront meetings help to strengthen the application so that when they are finally submitted officially on our new 3-page form, they are ready for evaluation and qualification. Since assuming the program in 2023, we have received over 20 inquiries, and we have received 2 formal applications. Because of the new process where our team is involved early, we're able to process and qualify these applications in a much shorter amount of time. And because we don't require the studies up front, the Clean Water program can often assist with funding the pre-acquisition studies, which was another request made by our program partners. We are also increasing our stewardship of previously acquired lands. One of the things we're really excited about is that we are preparing the city's first ever conservation plans for the lands that we own in fee that were acquired by the Clean Water Fund. We're also using the fund to install signage at sites to acknowledge the land and to protect the conservation values, and I've put an example of some of the proposed signage up on the screen. Those are for just to show that clean water money, our taxpayer dollars, have been invested to protect these places, and also to warn against activities that could be harmful. Finally, we will continue to hold Malama Aina Days to promote the Clean Water program and to build relationships. We have several transactions that are upcoming. We are ready to close Pico Ridge, whatever the land court is ready. All of our documents have been submitted. All of our funding has been submitted into escrow. We are also gearing up to close Palawai and Makali'i later this year and early next year. Really, really exciting landscape opportunity in Maunawili. We also are expecting a new application from Pu'uhonua o Wailupe. OHA has submitted a voluntary landowner letter, and so we're really excited for that partnership, and we meet with them every 2 weeks, and I think they expect to get their application in later this month. So we're excited about that. A lot of good things coming down the pipeline. And in closing, we'd just like to share a brief video which kind of shows the essence of clean water. It's the city council, community partners, partnering together to restore land. No sound? And so with that, that is our presentation. We put a QR code so you can get to our website, get more information. We also put the contact information for our staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go into Q&A, I'd like to actually call up Olu Campbell, President and CEO for the Hawaii Land Trust, to give his presentation before we have questions from the council members.
Aloha awakea kākou. Chair Kia'aina, members of the committee, my name is Olu Campbell. I have the privilege of serving as the president and CEO of Hawaii Land Trust. I was asked by our chair to come and provide a perspective on this program from a partner organization who regularly works with the Clean Water Natural Lands program and their team. To do that and to really explain why our perspective on this matter even matters, just going to give you a little bit of context on our organization. So Hawaii Land Trust is Hawaii's local islands-wide nationally accredited land trust. We focus on protecting, stewarding, and cultivating reciprocal relationships with Aina that help to sustain Hawaii and also to really contribute to meaningful solutions to our community's most pressing systemic challenges. We do that across three areas, three Aina priorities: our biocultural ecosystems, food systems, and our Kamaina and local communities, areas that we feel like have the capacity to support the most impactful reciprocal relationships between our people and our Aina. And we do that through three different key operational strategies. There are land transactions, and that's where we work most closely with our with the Clean Water Natural Lands team, but also our Aina stewardship work, along with our Aina-based community programs, and we do that all across the Pai'aina here in Hawaii. Turning to the Clean Water Natural Lands program, we've worked with this program in a number of specific projects, and I just have a few examples of those here on the screen. So we have Maunawila Heiau Complex, which is a property that we now own and self-steward along with a number of community partners out in Hau'ula. This is Hakipu'u Lo'ikalo, which is a conservation easement that we hold over another landowner's lands, and they do farming. And these are a couple of projects that we have in the pipeline working with the Clean Water Natural Lands team on. Not exactly sure for this particular project, Waiakalua Fish Pond, on the exact closing details and if the Clean Water Natural Lands funds will eventually be used in the final purchase. But as of right now, we're still working with the Clean Water Natural Lands team on this project here, along with the two projects in Maunawili that Deputy Director Tashner mentioned a little while ago, Palawai, along with Makali'i. And so these are just, we're regularly working with the Clean Water Natural Lands team on a weekly basis. Our transactional team is in regular contact on the details, from due diligence to drafting easement documents to closing transactions, all those things working hand in hand with the Clean Water Natural Lands team. And so, I just wanted to highlight a few opportunities, let's say, that we see from our perspective in working with this program. I first just want to underscore the importance of the program. From a landscape perspective across this field, there are not very many programs dedicated to land acquisition in the conservation, natural resource, agricultural spaces. Each of the counties here in Hawaii has their equivalent of the Clean Water Natural Lands program. The state Department of Land and Natural Resources has the Legacy Lands program. At a federal level, there's just only a handful of programs really focused on this. There's some programs through USDA for agricultural lands. The Forest Service has a Forest Legacy program for forest lands. The DoD has their programs that relate to the interests of the DoD. And on the private sector, in terms of private philanthropy, private foundations, there's really just one major foundation that is like entirely focused on supporting this land transactional work here in Hawaii. There are other local foundations that support the work on a kind of a case-by-case basis, but it's not their primary focus. And so, the Clean Water Natural Lands Fund is one of very few programs that's really focused on land acquisition, conservation easement acquisition. And as a result, it's a really essential program to making sure that these types of projects here on Oahu are feasible, particularly the larger projects. We can fundraise for smaller projects using grassroots philanthropy, looking for individual donations of smaller amounts. But when we're looking at landscape scale projects, looking for millions of dollars to really have significant impact in the communities that we serve, there's only a few options, and they're really these public programs, including Clean Water Natural Lands Fund. So I just want to really underscore the importance of this program and the capacity that it has to have significant impact in the communities here. When it comes to funding for the program, as the department here mentioned, there's a significant amount of funds currently in that pot, and that's really important because it does position us to make significant steps towards major projects. The challenge that we have often in working with not only this program but other government programs is that projects require more than just acquisitions funding. It requires everything from the staff capacity, the due diligence funding, the capital for the closing costs. Like it's a broader budget than just the price of the land itself. And so it's really important that, to the extent that these types of programs can support that diversity of project budget needs, like that is really helpful. There are just a few organizations in Hawaii who are fully dedicated to doing these types of land transactions. It's basically Hawaii Land Trust, Trust for Public Lands, who have dedicated staff doing this every single day. The Nature Conservancy, I believe, has one person here. And then other organizations engage with the programs on a kind of case-by-case basis, but they don't necessarily have that dedicated staffing. We have an abundance of inquiries that are, have the potential to be really impactful projects. We get them all the time, including referrals from members of this council. We do not, like the organizations working in this space do not have the staff capacity to move all the potential projects forward in the time that they need to be moved forward. We have 2 full-time staff that work on this. One of them was here earlier today, but unfortunately had to leave. Trust for Public Lands has a handful of staff. We have a pipeline that's like 30 plus projects, inquiries deep. We're working on about 11 active projects right now. There's so much need. I fielded 3 additional inquiries just this week, 2 of which were from Hawaii Island, 1 of which was from Oahu. It's a constant pipeline, and the number of community members who are interested in doing this type of work is just growing, and so we just get more and more inquiries for this type of work, and it's just more than we can support in terms of our staff. So to the extent that programs like this have an opportunity to support those broader costs that can enable those dollars in the account to move quicker, that could be very helpful. I also want to mention just like quick capital. So acquisitions, they need to be timely. Private landowners who are looking to sell their lands, they have a timeline, right? And unless we can meet that timeline, a lot of times those opportunities are lost. And in some cases, those opportunities are lost for like generations. And so when landowners put up significant, important lands for our community up for sale, or they're even willing to consider that potential, we need to be able to move on those things quickly. And unfortunately, it's really hard to have quick capital to support those things. And as a result, we see a lot of projects just pass through because we're just not able to move quick enough. Flexible timelines, these projects are complex. We've had projects on other islands that we've been working on for literally over a decade. And it's just, the interests of landowners vary, the capacity of communities who are working with in partnership to try to close these transactions vary. And so flexibility is really essential to ensure that we can ride those waves and we can eventually get to a place where these transactions can close. We have some transactions, to be fair, that can close very quickly. Other transactions, like I said, they take many years. And so to have the flexibility of these programs that are supporting the transactions financially and enabling us that flexibility to move at the speed of trust with the communities is really important. Stewardship, Deputy Director Tashner mentioned stewardship. Really important function. Closing a transaction just really brings you to the start line of perpetual relationship with place, and that perpetual relationship has tremendous financial needs in some cases, and having the support from the Clean Water Natural Lands Fund for stewardship is really important. I think it's also important that the city really balances those interests. Like I said, there's not very many funds available for land acquisition. There's a lot more funding sources available for stewardship and programming. So to the extent that these things could at some point become competing uses, I think it's really important for the city to kind of balance those interests out appropriately. There's also opportunity to do multiple different types of funding opportunities through this fund. A lot of this funding has been going out through grants for things like land acquisition. There's also opportunities, in my opinion, to do these things through contracts. And it kind of relates to one of the other points, the next point about partnerships. What we see in this sector all across the INA space is that there's so much need to do better stewardship of INA, but there's not enough capacity. Organizations across the islands doing INA stewardship work are trying their best with limited capacity, and there really needs to be system strategies, collaborative capacity strategies employed to do more with the limited resources that we have, and that's where partnership and other types of funding opportunities comes into place. I'll give you one example of that we're working on with the city right now. Conservation easements, which the city holds and a few other organizations across Hawaii holds, is a fairly unique thing, and it requires a very specific type of knowledge and expertise to do conservation easement monitoring, compliance, and enforcement. Hawaii Land Trust is unique where we have 55 conservation easements, so by necessity, we've had to build that capacity in-house. And so right now we're working on a pilot project with the city where we're helping to provide contract stewardship monitoring support for one of the city's easements as a model where we can take some income from the city that we can aggregate capacity in our organization for that really unique function, and then we're able to provide that support to other organizations who need that support. So that's one example of a shared capacity strategy, and I think there's a lot more opportunity to consider similar strategies for these types of programs. And last but not least, additional purposes. Like the purposes of the fund currently are really, really important. I think there's other purposes that the fund could be, that they're very closely connected, that the fund could be expanded to, and those include things like fire mitigation, climate adaptation, and so forth. And so that concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And members, I know we all have a lot of questions for the deputy director, so if you don't mind, I'd like for Olu to stay up there, and we just ask questions for him first before we bring up DLM, because DLM is going to take a long time, I would think. So can we just start off first? So first of all, thank you for your coming here, and thank you for your partnership with the city, as well as what you just mentioned with regard to providing capacity not only to the city, but also to other community-based organizations. If you look at slide 10 of DLM's presentation, can they put that up on the screen, please? Slide 10, it has to do with where the city has conservation sites in play. And while they're putting it up, can I ask you, do you have within HILT, do you have an Oahu designated officer?
We don't designate our staff by island. We used to do that, but what we found was that it's really important for us to work based on, significant areas of expertise and significant relationships with the people who are on the ground, and so we do it that way.
Sure, and I'm going to ask this, of course, to the city as well, but if you look at the concentration of where the current sites are, or our portfolio, it's largely in both Councilmember Waters' district as well as my own, and it is probably because a lot of the community-based organizations in these areas are very active. But having said that, we're all about just equitable distribution of city funds. And if you look at the map, my colleagues here, everybody who's sitting here could use some projects in their district, because they're only making inroads coming around Makpu'u around there, but both Councilmember Waters as well as Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, Councilmember Cordero, Councilmember Okimoto, and there is nothing on the Waianae coast and any place in the district. So I guess my question to you is, what is the challenge? Can you guys kokua by knowing that, and perhaps you talked about leveraging, and leveraging is also looking at underserved communities. So my question to you is, has your staff looked at how you can partner with community-based organizations in these areas so they can have projects too?
Yes, we have. And we do have, if you go on our HILT website and look at our list of projects, we do have projects that are in Waianae and Ewa. They've just never been closed using this particular funding source, and that could be for a variety of reasons, to no fault of the program itself. It just could have been a timing issue or a funding availability issue. But we've worked with folks like Ma'o Farms to do multiple projects on the Waianae coast, Kahumana Farms. We have a large conservation easement in the kind of like the Palehua area. And so, yeah, there's the potential to do a lot more in those areas for sure. There's a lot of variables that need to be taken into consideration, like land availability. Certain districts have a lot of state-owned land or federal-owned land, and obviously, that makes it less likely that these projects will happen. Landowner willingness is also something that we need. We can't close a project unless the current landowner is either willing to sell or put an easement on it. And so, to the extent that certain districts might have more willingness for whatever reason, that's probably another factor. And then the community partner side, like you said, Chair Kia Aina, is really important. The vast majority of the transactions that we close are to support a place-based community organization to have more agency over the Aina in their community. On occasion, we'll step in as a landowner partner and work with a place-based stewardship organization. But if we don't have that community partner who has the capacity to walk with us in partnership through these programs, then it becomes a bit challenging as well.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. Just really quickly, mahalo, Olu. Thank you very much for the work, and especially giving the feedback to my communities, as well as Councilmember Kia Aina, who gave feedback. In a summary, for organizations that are looking to start up or maybe partner with Hawaii Land Trust, or even apply for Clean Water Natural Lands Fund program funds, what do you suggest succinctively that they have prepared before jumping in? Because we don't want to go through all this and say, oh, no, it can't work.
Yeah, honestly, we recommend people come to us sooner than later. So even if they don't even have a nonprofit organization founded, for example, or incorporated, but they're very passionate about whatever Aina might be in their community, they feel like there could be an opportunity. We always just ask people to come and talk story with us, and if we feel like there's the potential to explore it more, we'll go and do that. And then oftentimes we'll figure out along the way that it's not going to work for this reason, or it might work for these reasons, and then we'll kind of move forward on that basis. And then every single one of the transactions we do is very, very case by case. So in one transaction, a place-based nonprofit organization might have certain type of capacity, skill set, expertise, financial capacity, and so in that situation, the transaction might go a certain way. In another situation, an organization might be very focused on a certain type of program or cultural practice, and they might not, for example, be situated to be a large landowner, and that transaction will look very different. And so we just ask people to come to us, let's have good conversations, and then we'll figure it out.
Thank you, and thank you again for speaking, talking story with my communities in IAEA.
Anytime.
Thank you. Mahalo.
Thank you. And the next is Councilmember Tupola, and I just want to flag for everyone that we are nearing 12:30. We do have a 1 o'clock, so maybe this will be the last question for HILT, and then we're going to move on to DLM.
Yeah, I'll be fast. Thank you so much for your presentation. Thanks for your work. I've never met with you about any parcels, and I think the majority of my questions are going to be some of the very good points that you raised about how we could help people who are interested. So I just am going to save those questions for DHLM as far as responding on how we can use it, because a few years ago we changed the Clean Water Natural Land Fund to allow for some infrastructure as opposed to just acquisition, which could address some of what you brought up. But I also wanted to kind of set the record straight that just because there's no circles on the west side doesn't mean we don't have any active community groups. We have tons.
100%.
And I've had multiple sit downs with DHLM about doing projects out there. So I will save my questions for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move forward. Thank you so much for being here, Olu. Can we have Deputy Director? And I will start with Councilmember Tupola.
I'll be brief. I feel like we sat down and we talked with the Eaton family about the what in Eva by Huaca. I mean, it's kind of by Waikai right now, but I didn't see any progress there. You said you were going to get like a spreadsheet of what we needed to fill out. I mean, the Makaha Heiau up in the valley, they've actually asked. So I don't really know where all the pieces lie, but I feel like I've tried multiple times to like insert ideas, community projects, preserving around Heiau that are in my community, and I've gotten nowhere. So tell me what I'm missing.
No, I thank you for bringing those to us. Those are some of the inquiries that we referenced. And so in all cases, if anyone has even an inkling of interest in applying to the Clean Water Natural Lands Program, we recommend that they go to our website and submit an inquiry form. It's a simple, like, one-pager where you kind of give us an idea of what it is, and then our staff will sit down and help you structure the deal.
So in the event that we did that and we had a meeting with you and you said that you were going to give us information about what we needed to do next, what are we also missing?
I can follow up, but I believe that I did follow up with them with the application at that time.
Okay, I will follow up with you and with them as well. I mean, I do think that there's a handful that we really want to see happen, and I don't understand where the stuck points are, but I'm glad we're clarifying this. Thank you.
Chair Waters?
Thank you. According to your testimony, the basic process is that DHLM accepts the application, you do a preliminary review, then send it over to the advisory commission, who then advises for approval or not to the council. Then the council approves, and then Department of Housing and Land Management does its due diligence, right?
Correct.
You know, I'm looking at the charter, section 9-204, subsection 8, it reads, the Department of Land Management shall receive proposals for the use of funds in the Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund and shall submit qualified proposals to the Advisory Commission established pursuant to subsection 9, which shall make recommendations to the council for approval. So I'm thinking the due diligence should occur before it goes to the commission, based on what I'm reading here. So what you're currently doing, to me, does not comport to what the charter says.
What DHLM does is we receive the applications and then we qualify them. The qualification process looks at, does this meet the fund requirements? Is there a voluntary seller? Is there a voluntary landowner? At that point, then we push it over to the advisory commission. Due diligence in all cases follows the funding approval, and that's when we go through, evaluation of the city's acquisition of a real estate interest. We do the title work, we do the surveys, we negotiate with the landowner or with the land trust to put together a management plan, a baseline plan, and the conservation easement if it's the acquisition of a CE interest.
No, I understand that, but to me, you're supposed to do the due diligence before it goes to the commission and before it comes to us. Because what ends up happening in many cases is that the community has this expectation that once the council approves it, that it's done. And of course, as you know and we all know, that it can take years for DHLM to do due diligence. That's one problem I see. The second problem is, as with one of the proposals, I think it's Ke Kipuka o Kalaiuila, you're asking us to approve somewhere between 10 and 16 million. It's like a blank check, right? That you're asking us to approve when you haven't done your due diligence yet. And to me, as elected officials in charge of this fund and this money, I feel like we're not doing our job if we're just saying you can spend up to 16 million without doing the due diligence first. So in many respects, it's almost like putting the cart before the horse, especially when the charter doesn't really authorize you to do it that way. So let me ask you this. There is a question here. What authorization are you relying on to put due diligence last instead of first? Is there a statute, ordinance, or certainly not in the charter?
The section that you're referencing in the charter relates to the receiving of applications. In all cases, due diligence follows the approval. Part of that is
But what?
based
What
on
authorizes you to do it that way is my question. I know you're doing it that way, but what authorizes you to do it that way? Because if you look later in the charter, section 11, the council shall, by ordinance, establish other procedures for the administration and expenditure of monies in each fund consistent with this section. So is there an ordinance currently on the books that authorizes you to change the order of how this should go?
Again, the section that you're referencing is about processing the applications, not about structuring the due diligence transaction. If we were to do the due diligence up front,
Yeah.
it would completely change the tenor of applications.
Which is
One
what
of the
I want,
first things
really.
that we did was we listened to our partners. We listened to TPL, we listened to HILT. The prior application requested that the applicants come and with all their due diligence up front. And that was usually at a significant cost, which the community in most cases cannot bear. If we do all that work up front, it would hamper and in some cases probably have a chilling effect on conservation transactions.
I get
by
that. And
putting them
what
after
Olu
the-
Campbell testified to was persuasive in that you need the flexibility because these lands don't often come up and you want to do it as quickly as possible. But the fact of the matter is, your department is taking 3-4 years sometimes. So, you know, that's a problem. But again,
in some
I
cases,
guess I'm asking again, what authorizes you to do the due diligence last? Is there an ordinance that gives you that authority?
I believe that we are authorized under the charter to
Yeah, but the
execute on the
charter
Clean Water and
says
Natural
you
Lands
shall
program.
submit qualified proposals to the advisory commission. Like, I think what I'm hearing is you just determine first whether or not it fits one of the looks like 7 reasons, right? Protection for significant watershed lands, preservation of significant forests, public outdoor recreation and education, preservation of historically culturally important lands, protection of, so it sounds like you're making that determination first, then going to the commission. I mean, so what's the commission's role here, right? They just kind of go, yeah, that seems to fit one of these 7 things, right? I mean, you're not really utilizing the commission, if you ask me.
Yeah, Chair, just a couple of comments respectfully.
Sure.
We've only had jurisdictional authority over the fund for the last 2 years. So it doesn't take us 4 years to do due diligence. We haven't had the fund that long, right? We've only had it for 2 years. So let's keep that in mind, you know, as we structure those transactions.
Well, how long
The
is it
second
taking
comment
for
I
the
would make-
for the Mauna Willie project? We approved that years ago.
Yeah,
We
not
approved
under
the
our
one in
jurisdiction.
Hawaii Kai years ago.
Not under our jurisdiction. And so we're working through those projects now. They might have legal issues, like Pico Ridge, you know that we're waiting for the land court. There are issues outside of our control, Chair Waters.
But
And
what I'm
I would
saying is,
respectfully ask you to recognize that.
okay.
Yeah. The
great.
second thing is
Now
common
moving
sense.
forward, though,
Common sense says that you want to know you have a deal before you go out and spend a lot of money on due diligence. It's like any other real estate transaction, respectfully, right?
Right.
And so we want to understand that. We want to know that we've got the nexus of a deal before we go out and we spend a lot of taxpayer money on something that may not happen
So
because there
you're
may be a
making my point
misunderstanding.
exactly,
Uh-huh.
that you should have the deal done before you come to the council.
Before we
That's-
come to the council.
yes.
Look, Chair Waters,
That's my point.
we're happy, and I think that's one of the reasons we're having this dialogue.
Right.
If there are ways that we can improve this program or the process in order to get more transactions done faster, we're completely open to that. And we'd love to sit down with you and collaborate and figure out how we can do that.
Well, simple. Get the deal done before you come to the council, is my point.
I see. Okay, so we wrap it all up and then package it and come to you for an approval.
Yep. Then when we approve it, it's done.
Can we walk through that? We'll discuss that. We'll come back to you for sure.
Okay, well, we're authorized to do an ordinance that does exactly that. So that's what I think we should do. So thank you.
Appreciate that input.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, we're going to try to wrap this up then. First of all, I want to thank you guys for coming. Oh, yes, sure.
Sorry, I definitely don't want to speak for the department on this, but I can speak to our own process and how we've dealt with this kind of situation. Because like they've said, it doesn't make sense to go through a really extensive due diligence process unless you have some kind of, at least a tentative assurance that the thing has the potential to close. And at the same time, the decision makers want to make sure due diligence is done properly before they allocate the funding. And so when we do it internally at Hawaii Land Trust, we have a two-step process. And so we'll field initial inquiries, make sure they meet kind of like our minimal threshold as a project that we might even consider. Then we take it to our board for decision-making, giving them the opportunity to tentatively move the project from an inquiry to an active project where we're approved to expend those resources to go through the due diligence process. And then once the due diligence is complete, knowing that our board has already bought into the general philosophy of the project, we come back to our board for a final approval, at which point they say, yes, you can go and spend X number of dollars to close the deal. And so that's how we've kind of negotiated this balance between making sure that the due diligence funds are spent wisely and not wasting our time or the resources.
Thank you. We're going to come to closure on this informational briefing. I just wanted to thank both testifiers. For DHLM, on the slide 22, for the governmental agencies, as you know, I know DOD has their own restrictions, but the Readiness and Environmental Protection Integration Program has been very, very active in the last couple of years. And I'm actually working with them to hopefully have I think it's called a cooperative agreement with the City and County of Honolulu. And I'm hoping to work with various agencies. And so you're just making me think that we should be inclusive of your agency in this process. So you should put it under governmental agencies. And a lot of what Chair Waters is talking about has to do with the charter. And I just want to remind you that the Charter Commission is soliciting comments, not just from council members, but the general public, as well as the city agencies. So if there are flaws or proposals for improvement in the processes that the Chair Waters was alluding to, then you also have the discretion to be making those recommendations. And I would also say that to Olu as well, for nonprofit organizations to be making recommendations to this provision or any other provision in the Commission Charter. So thank you again, and look forward to meeting one-on-one with Bree and Tam. Welcome to the program. And I know that if you work with us and help us with information and social graphics, all of us can help in getting the word out in our communities. And hopefully the next time you come, we're going to see dots all over the map in all of our districts. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anybody here to testify on this informational briefing in person?
Chair, there are none.
And none online, correct?
We have 2 online.
Two
Standing by.
online. Oh, I'm so sorry, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, let's start with you. Please
And
proceed.
thank you yes, thank you so very much. Real quick, for the sake of time, I just wanted to thank, I want to be very, very clear that our community would not have been able to protect all the landscapes, almost 600 acres worth of very important land, had it not been for this fund. More specifically, real quick, I'm engaged in that Pico Ridge transaction, and I have to let you know behind the scenes while we wait for land court, which was a surprise to us. The department was wonderful with working on dotting every I, crossing every T, and doing everything that our organization had asked so that we are ready to close just as soon as the land court doc comes back. And I really appreciate that. So I wanted to just kind of holler that out, as well as it truly is a partnership, and without a doubt, working with them is very empowering for the community, for our community at least, it has been. So thank you so much. I'm here as a resource anytime in the future, for any other organization to share how we've done what we've done. But thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for what you're doing for the community. I take it Kendrick Chang is not online, is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, Angela Melody Young, please proceed. We can't hear you. Okay, if there's a problem, I can't hear you, Angela. Anyway, listen, thank you for your presence. I'm going to be closing this hearing. This meeting is adjourned.